Do you believe you know the people around you? You think you can identify when someone is toxic, when energy feels heavy, when behavior crosses the line of what is acceptable. But what if the real dangers remain hidden? What if the most destructive people often seem charming, kind, even family members? While you try to protect yourself from obvious villains, you open the doors of your mind to something infinitely more dangerous, the unconscious of others invading your own. Niccolo Machiavelli dedicates his thought to studying these hidden dynamics. In his work The Prince and Other Writings, he reveals that most of what truly governs human behavior lies outside conscious control. This applies not only to you, but to everyone, and that is precisely where the danger exists. When someone remains blind to their own dark motives or internal conflicts, that shadow seeks a host, and often that host is you. Perhaps you have never stopped to consider this, but think now, how many times have you felt emotionally drained after talking with someone? How often have you been blamed for things you didn't do, or treated as the savior of a tragedy that isn't even yours? Machiavelli's insight is that people project their own faults and weaknesses onto others to avoid confronting them. From that moment, you cease to be a person and become a symbol, a mirror, an imaginary enemy, or an idealized hero. All these images have something in common. None of them is truly you. The most frightening part is that often you don't realize you're in this game. You think you are helping, being empathetic, mature. Meanwhile, you sink into a psychological field that is not your string to resolve conflicts that don't belong to you, being manipulated by dynamics neither created by nor controlled by you. And it's not just about ill-intentioned people. Machiavelli clarifies that the greatest dangers do not come from overt enemies, but from those unaware of their own internal contradictions. These are those alienated from their own psyche, dominated by masks, fears, ambitions, and hidden desires. They are not evil, they are dangerous, and this danger is silent. It doesn't enter through the front door but infiltrates gradually daily through small comments, veiled accusations, loaded silences, until you begin doubting yourself. When you lose contact with your own reality, you become part of their shadow. Perhaps you are going through this right now in a relationship, friendship, work environment, or even within your family. Perhaps you blame yourself, trying to understand what is wrong with you. The answer is nothing, but something is deeply wrong with the way you are used as a vessel for someone else's unconscious dynamics. In this video, expose one by one the 6 types of people Machiavelli would identify as emotionally dangerous types, acting not with deliberate malice but driven by internal forces they do not understand, which makes them destructive. Use Machiavelli's words, concepts, and warnings directly from his works such as The Prince and Discourses on Livy to show how to recognize these profiles. More than that, open your eyes to the possibility that one or more of these profiles reside within you as well. Are you ready? Take a deep breath and move forward. But be warned, after hearing this, you will no longer look at people or even yourself the same way. Music. Imagine living with someone who blames you for everything they feel, who turns your presence into a trigger, making you responsible for emotions you never caused. At first, they seem fragile, sensitive, deep, but over time, you realize being dragged into a battlefield that isn't your sand, you're already at a disadvantage. This is the unconscious manipulator, someone unaware of their own wounds, but projecting them onto others as psychic survival. Machiavelli says, men are so simple and so much dominated by immediate needs that a deceiver will always find those ready to be deceived. Often, this fate has a name, a face, and sits at your table. The unconscious manipulator remains dominated by repressed content, integrated traumas, unprocessed emotional fragments. Instead of introspection, they aim at you and turn you into a canvas for their internal conflicts. This type lives in chronic projection. According to Machiavelli's understanding of human nature, projection is an inevitable psychic function. When unrecognized, it becomes destructive. In his writings, Machiavelli notes that people rarely see others as they are. Instead, they view them as reflections of their own hidden fears and desires. This is exactly what the unconscious manipulator does. They do not see you, they see a lost part of themselves and react as if real. These people often position themselves as victims. Everything that happens is someone else's fault, never theirs. When they feel anger, it's because you provoked it. When sad, it's because you disappointed them. When inferior, it's because you think you're superior. This distortion is so subtle you start questioning yourself. Am I really insensitive? Did I say something wrong? Am I toxic? Manipulation happens without a shout or direct request. It's emotional, unconscious, and absolutely effective. Worse still, often these people are charming, charismatic, sensitive, with an aura of emotional intensity. This creates a trap because you believe you can help, heal, or understand them better than others. But what you're doing is sacrificing your mental health, trying to rescue someone who refuses to dive into themselves, and the more you try, the more you sink. Machiavelli warns these projection patterns are especially dangerous because they place us in symbolic role as savior, enemy, traitor, father, mother, anything but who we really are. Living in a symbolic bond means living an illusion. You cease to be seen as a subject and become a distorted reflection of another's unconscious. The only way to protect yourself from an unconscious manipulator is to develop awareness, recognize patterns, cut the invisible threads connecting you to their emotional narrative, and most importantly, constantly ask if what you feel is yours or induced. The unconscious manipulator does not invade violently. They enter through your empathy gap. Once you recognize this pattern, the next step is understanding how it disguises itself more deeply with the mask of the persona. The one who not only projects but acts to appear as something they're not. Next, explore the bearer of the persona, representing one of Machiavelli's greatest psychological risks. While the unconscious manipulator throws conflicts onto you, the bearer of the persona can drag you into a world where even you forget who you really are. If this content resonates, click subscribe and join the channel. Thanks for your support. Not all psychological danger comes from extreme behaviors. Sometimes it comes from what seems too perfect. The ever-ready smile, impeccable posture, flawless image. We live in an era of appearances where being matters less than seeming. This poses a serious problem. When someone over-identifies with their persona, social mask used to adapt, they risk disconnection from their essence. Those living for the mask lose themselves and distort everyone around them. The persona is what someone is not, but what they and others think they are, an artificial construction shaped by social, familial, and professional expectations. The persona itself is not a mistake. Everyone uses it. It allows fulfilling social roles: doctor, teacher, sibling, friend. The problem starts when someone believes they are only that. When the mask sticks, everything spontaneous, vulnerable, and authentic locks in the psyche's basement. The bearer of the persona masters functional superficiality. They say what others want to hear, behave correctly, and avoid conflicts at all costs. But behind this control curtain lies a soul in ruins. The more they sustain the image, the more they suffocate the self, and repression eventually exacts its price. For those living with such a person, the impact is profound. Something feels wrong but cannot be named. Spontaneity, truth, and depth lack in interactions. Everything seems rehearsed. Worse, the bearer projects this demand for perfection onto you. They expect you to perform, fit in, and collaborate with the theater. Express something off-script: intense emotion, doubt, or pain, and they retreat, grow uncomfortable, and shut down. Anything reminding them of what is repressed becomes unbearable. This identification with the persona threatens the process of self-knowledge and integration. Real danger begins when the individual hypnotizes themselves with their role, believing they are what others see. There lies the risk, living only to be accepted, recognized, praised. They become hostages to their facade, All genuineness dies beneath the veneer. Living with such a person leads you to doubt your spontaneity, police your words, and hide parts of yourself that don't fit the ideal narrative. Gradually, you also wear a mask, unaware. Coexisting with a bearer of the persona is not just artificial, it's contagious. Yet something darker exists. When someone represses feelings, thoughts, and desires too long, they don't disappear. They accumulate, ferment, and transform into shadow. Then begins even more dangerous territory, denied emotions returning explosively. Next, dive into the owner of the repressed shadow, the one who refuses to see their dark side until it explodes. There is a type of person who lives controlled, polished, restrained, always correct, moderate, and polite. But behind this balanced exterior lies a force about to break free. Everything considered wrong, ugly, or unacceptable sinks into the soul's basement, not overcome or transformed, only repressed. This is the essence of the owner of the repressed shadow, someone who tries to be light until darkness takes control. The shadow is everything the individual refuses to recognize in themselves, yet insists on manifesting somehow. It is internal. It is the hatred unacknowledged, envy rationalized, sexuality repressed, ambition disguised as humility. Everything rejected within transforms into shadow. What remains unconscious directs life and becomes destiny. The owner of the repressed shadow doesn't seem dangerous at first glance. Often, they appear admired, disciplined, kind, and helpful. But something is strange: intolerance for weakness in others, poor reactions to spontaneity, discomfort with intense emotions. Always charged but never exploding until eruption happens, and it is devastating. This person lives in constant emotional vigilance. They do not allow themselves to feel and condemn those who do. They do not allow others to grieve and attack those who do. They become moralistic, demanding, and controlling. But all this is an attempt to keep the unconscious repressed. The stronger the persona, the more repressed the shadow. The more repressed the shadow, the more brutal its manifestation. This pattern appears in people with disproportionate reactions, explosions over small things, grudges lasting years, and passive-aggressive sabotage. They are the difficult people, bitter, resentful, critical. The cause lies in the shadow, unintegrated, unrecognized, unaccepted. And here's the most important point: the shadow isn't just made of bad things. It also contains denied potential, repressed creativity, and hidden strength. But when ignored, the shadow turns into poison. This poison contaminates relationships, environments, and especially those closest. Living with the owner of the repressed shadow is like living near an emotional minefield. You never know where you step until you are hit. This repression often feeds on illusions of superiority and rigid moral ideals, turning guilt into control. Here appears the next type, the moral controller. Someone who represses their desires and makes you feel guilty for living yours. The moral controller uses ethics, rules, and dogmas as tools. They claim righteousness and morality but imprison themselves and others in cages of guilt and shame. When morality becomes a facade, it becomes one of the most insidious forms of repression. Instead of integrating their shadow, the moral controller projects it onto others and condemns them for what they reject in themselves. They frequently point fingers but never look inward. They maintain an image of moral superiority. The greater the repression, the stronger the need to project the shadow. The moral controller turns others into sinners, deviants, or immoral to avoid facing their own desires and contradictions. Unlike common emotional manipulators, they believe they do good correcting, saving, or educating others. This makes their influence toxic, cloaked in authority, good intentions, and false spirituality. Criticism comes with phrases like, "It's for your own good," or "Someone needs to tell you the truth." But their truth is loaded with projection. They believe they embody the light but ignore their own darkness. They project evil onto others to maintain the illusion of purity. This blindness makes them dangerous, unable to perceive the soul's nuances. Living near such a person, you may feel constantly guilty and diminished. Often you internalize judgment, repress parts of yourself, and mold to an alien ideal. The morality of the other becomes your prison. This pattern is common in families, religions, and rigid environments where obedience equals virtue. Excessive moralism threatens self-knowledge. Extreme moralists seek control, not truth. Unable to control the external world, they try to control the internal worlds of others. But the moral controller is not the only unconscious guide. Another type is volatile, unstable, and unpredictable or complex. While the moralist represses and projects, the complex person is dominated by unconscious content and reacts like a puppet. Prepare to meet the person who embraces you one moment and destroys you the next without knowing why. Complexes are autonomous nuclei of emotion and memory residing in the unconscious. They seize consciousness at any moment. They are like fragmented personalities formed by trauma and unresolved experiences. Complex people react not to present realities but echoes of the past. A simple comment unconsciously triggers old abandonment or humiliation, and those nearby pay the price. They remain unaware of internal forces guiding them. Their reactions appear irrational but are undigested emotions. These eruptions occur unpredictably, alternating with lucidity or affection. This unpredictability makes relationships confusing and addictive. You think they are sometimes wonderful, which keeps you hooked. Moments of genuine connection alternate with emotional storms. You adapt, shrink, avoid topics, and walk on eggshells. The monster inside is always latent, waiting to emerge. When it does, it consumes everything. Complexes colonize the psyche. They speak, feel, and act for the person. They dominate behavior frequently. Complexes of inferiority, martyrdom, abandonment, or persecution all demand attention. Trying to maintain peace feeds the illusion of control. Living close to them means constant alertness and emotional instability. Eventually, you absorb these ghosts, doubting yourself. You become colonized by another's unconscious. But the most dangerous is yet to come. While complexes cause emotional swings, another type silently consumes your energy. The psychic vampire feeds on your time, attention, and empathy and leaves you drained. Some people want your energy more than your presence. They drain it subtly through chronic demands, victimhood, and dependency disguised as affection. The psychic vampire is the most insidious emotional drainer. It symbolizes pathological symbiotic relationships where boundaries dissolve. Two people fail to see themselves as separate and exist as psychic extensions of each other. The psychic vampire needs constant attention, comfort, and availability. Behind this neediness lies a void you cannot fill. You offer support, time, and tolerate abuse in the name of understanding. Eventually, your energy drains, you lose the sense of self. The exhaustion is profound, physical, and existential. It feels like your soul is devoured drop by drop. Psychic vampires refuse to grow, they want to be carried. The danger is not only exhaustion but self-dissolution. You feel guilty for wanting space, selfish for wanting silence, cold for wanting distance. They master role reversal from victim to accuser, needy to manipulator. Before you realize, you live to avoid crises, maintain peace, and sustain a bond killing you inside. Machiavelli offers a path to awareness, applying to others and ourselves. Perhaps you too have been a psychic vampire, complexed, or a bearer of the persona. None of us are immune. All carry shadow and pain. The difference lies in who chooses courage to look within and who projects that burden onto others. This video serves as a mirror dive into dynamics binding, hurting, and keeping us unconscious. If you've reached this point, you are ready to see, name, and break free. This is the first and most powerful freedom, not blaming others but stepping out of captivity and reclaiming sovereignty over your mind. Now, participate. Leave in the comments which profiles you faced and which you honestly see in yourself. Your comment might start awareness for you and those who read it. Before you go, an important note. The next video is essential. It takes you deeper into self-knowledge. Keep watching. You need to see, because the more light shed on the unconscious, the less it controls us. See you there.